you guys. I kind of had to come on before I lose the light. It started to get dark outside. We've got thunder and lightning. It's raining here in Costa Rica, but here I am. I wanted to talk about something pretty serious today. I wanted to talk about food insecurity. I touched on that a little bit the other day when I was looking at Duggar Dillard's book, Counting the Costs, where she talked about what I termed as food insecurity, because I've seen this many times in my old church. I saw this in my working life when I was working in various places. And we dealt with that when I worked at the Children's Residential Treatment Center, where we would have children that had no idea what healthy food was, that had never eaten fruits or vegetables. So this is a serious, serious thing. Let me introduce myself. For those of you who don't know, I'm Suzanne Titkamar. I used to work for a place called Pathos. Wrote a column called No Longer Quivering. Hey, number one fan. Yeah, here I am. So I wrote for over 10 years for them about the Quiverfull Evangelical world, which is something that I've unfortunately come to become something of an expert in. And it's a pretty hot mess. So everything I say here is just my opinions. Please do not harass anybody at all that I talk about here. And I'm suddenly real hot and the AC is blowing, so I'm not sure what's going on. So here I am. Last night late, I got a comment. It was either late last night or early this morning. I didn't see it till I was up and around and trying to wake my ass up. As you see, I'm still having caffeine and it's 5:36 here in the afternoon and I'm still trying to wake up. Not good. Hey, Michelle. So I had a comment from somebody that was getting on to me about the whole food insecurity thing that I proclaimed about Jill and the rest of the Duggars that Jill talked about in her book, Counting the Cost. I was astounded when I read that part. I was kind of horrified because there are very few things in this life that you really want to make sure that your kid has that are good besides food, medical care, schooling, that sort of thing. And that's where I think Quiverfull falls apart and falls down. Women and children get beaten routinely and harmed, abused. Women and children do not get proper medical care and many times end up paying the price for it, either losing their lives or something that is minor becomes huge and you almost lose your life. And I would say the third one, is the food insecurity thing. That is huge. I've seen this so many times at my old church. So I was shocked when I read this in Jill's book. And then at the same time, I wasn't shocked. It was a twofold thing. Jill talked about the first time that the TLC people came to film 14 Children and Pregnant Again, I think was the name of the special, that they wanted to film the family shopping for groceries. So the family was shopping for groceries at Aldi's like usual, except instead of buying the cheapy bean burritos and the cans of beans, white bread they sell there, and oodles of ramen noodles, they were buying real food, according to Jill. Jill has talked about in her book the food insecurity that the family went through. And that led me to do a lot of research today. I didn't end up doing a border run. I did research on what the deal was with food stamps and where the line is, where you can collect, where you can't, the SNAP program. And I think from what I could determine, the Duggars, before they became famous, likely qualified and did not participate. So many Christian families, I knew it in my old Quiverfull church, would not have anything to do with the WIC program, which I've talked about before, women, infants, and children. It's a great program because it gives you vouchers and it tells you exactly what you can spend the money on. You can buy milk, you can buy nutritious cereal, you can buy fruit and vegetables. And That's one thing that I saw a lot too. And I saw this with the early Duggar shows. And I actually used to go to a place called Television Without Pity and Sound Off. And one of the things I used to always say is, look at the way those kids are eating. Now, I know that I am that cusp generation where not everybody understands how to eat. And I know in rural areas, that information doesn't get around either. I have had people tell me, ask me to explain how to read a USDA food label. Even this Diet Coke has one, even though it's got 0 calories and 0 anything. Everything that you're going to consume has this. And I found that this is the most important thing, especially if you have blood sugar issues. I'm kind of borderline. So I've been able to control it using food, reading the labels, and going from there. And I've had so many people online tell me that they need a primer in that, and I've been thinking about doing it. But going back to the whole thing with the Duggars, Jill said that they were fed beans on white bread sandwiches many times, and the noodles and the little cheap bean burritos. Now, I'm not knocking any of that. I've eaten struggle food myself when I was in college and I was a starving student. There were a whole lot of ramen based meals and bean burritos eaten. Oh, hey, Cindy. Hey, you got to go read that comment. It's pretty crazy. The one I got accused me of being an elitist American because the way I approach food is fundamental. And though I was doing this whole thing, and I totally lost my train of thought. Is that tell you where my mind is? Even when I was eating that way, I was doing stuff like supplementing with fruits and vegetables because I learned enough about that as I was coming up to change my diet. I grew up, like I said, the last generation where you were encouraged to drink all your milk, to eat your beef. It was good to eat your beef. Um, fat is good. Everybody uses lard. And I got to tell you, one of my big treats here is going to either McDonald's or Burger King and having a pie fried in lard. They have them. They used to have them in the States. They're so good, but they're so bad for you. And so when I was a kid, there wasn't a whole lot of information on nutrition going around. It wasn't taught in school. We didn't see it, hear it, none of that. There weren't doctors giving you warnings about that. And I watched my mother struggle with her weight and try to stay slender too in those days, not understanding anything about nutrition. So I noticed this in Quiverfull in the groups that I was in, that nobody understood nutrition there either. That the parents, the theology was, as long as I give the kids something to eat, it doesn't matter what it is. And I saw that with Gwen Shamblin too. She used to teach. It was interesting, these kinds of families stress the importance of self determination, providing for the family, and not being a burden on society, yet don't grow or raise our food. Exactly. I don't know why they don't have gardens. An elitist American. It should have been a crime for those kids to have gone through food insecurities. Absolutely, Michelle. It should have been a crime. They always had at least enough space to grow vegetables. And that's really what you have to do. That's what I did for many years. And I can't understand anybody who has food insecurity and takes no steps. There's all kinds of different things you can do. There's farmer markets where you can get inexpensive produce. A lot of them will even take your SNAP card. There's so many different ways to feed your family. And it is really tragic for people like the Duggars because there are so many helps, and there were more before a lot of them got stripped away. I've been reading about the SNAP program a lot, and you have to make 130% of the poverty line in order to qualify, which isn't as low as you would think. So a lot of people do qualify, and I think that they qualified as well. I know all those people I went to church with likely qualified, and they all promote that, but none of them did anything that was remotely self-help. What do I mean by that? I mean, let's see, back in my old college days, at one point we formed a co-op and bought a whole cow from a one of these places that does the butchering and the selling. There were food co-ops that I was part of. You could get different things. Sometimes you could get the seconds on the fruits and vegetables. There's so many different ways. But at the same time, if you have somebody like Gwen Shamblin saying that it doesn't matter what you eat, that as long as you are trusting in God to turn it into the thing you need, it doesn't matter if it's carb, it doesn't matter if it's meat, it doesn't matter if it's dairy, it doesn't matter if it's fruits or vegetables. Just eat whatever you feel like, eat whatever you have, and God will magically turn it into the nutritional thing you need. No. And I hate to call out a Quiverfull family, but I'm about to. The Rodriguezes are perfect example of a family that would qualify for SNAP and could do all these different things, like join these food co-ops and get cheaper things, grow vegetables, all of that. All you have to do is look at the Rodriguezes' kids, and you start wondering what in the heck is going on there. Who is not feeding whom? Jill has always made remarks like every time she's had a baby, said, well, that's one last chicken leg to go around. And if you look at the meals that she has made and shown on her own social media, you will see, yeah, they were foam. They were really bad. That Jill does extreme food restrictions on those kids. When you see how tiny what she would make for all of them is, and I am not about fat shaming at all, but when you see somebody who is as rotund as David Rodriguez and somebody struggling to be skinny like Jill Rodriguez, and then you see these children that look like they were on the grain and drain train on white bread and water, you have to wonder what's going on. David does seem incredibly lazy. Every time Jill has shown him, he's not doing anything. And you see the kids working the print shop, and you're going, this is the parentification of children. There's so many things going on in that whole household. And the food is just a scary and very obvious symptom of all the other stuff that's going on in that household. It's allegedly. I'm looking at that, and that's how I'm viewing it. So there's my rant, No, it's not elitist to want people to eat more than beans, okay? And yes, I do live in Costa Rica where beans and rice are a staple. It's called gallo pinto here. I grew up in South Louisiana eating red beans, rice, and sausage. It's a staple down there. It's not a struggle food. But I think it was something that started as a struggle food for African Americans in slavery times, as far as I can tell, how far back red beans and rice for coon asses like my family is. So struggle foods. And the thing is, when you do see a Rodriguez or a Duggar or whomever going to Aldi's, you see they're putting cookies in there for daddy. You see they're using a whole lot of processed foods. And like I said, my generation was possibly the last generation to be fed almost entirely processed foods. I struggle with my husband right now because he likes processed foods, okay? I don't. I can't eat processed foods except in a very limited quantity because it messes with my mast cell. So for me, it is a real juggling act. And then I did today's portion review of Debi Pearl's Create a Better Brain Through Neuroplasticity, her book. And this one was all about gut health. That was one of the big things that she was talking about. And I was talking about all the different crazy conspiracy theories around junk food. One of the ones I'd heard was that aliens invented junk food to weaken the human race. So Debi Pearl is talking about this, and I kind of laugh about that because Debi Pearl is the actual one that she and her husband, when they were starting out with their ministry, fed their children an entire winter ground up feedlot corn. Yes, that's what they used because they didn't have any money. That, and they were given cans by the parishioners, and she said she thought they might be cat food. And that is what she fed. So, like I said, this is a real problem, a real problem. And then you got your Debbies talking about if you feed any kind of processed foods, you're ruining your kids' brain, you're ruining their gut health, you ruin their entire lives. There's got to be a balance. There are those moments when junk food is called for. Our processed foods are going to be, you're going to find them in your mouth. When I get sick, I really want one of those cup of noodle soups. Oh, you were listening to that? Psych studies with no links. I know, Michelle. When I read the book, I was just so jaw dropped at some of her ideas. I mean, I couldn't believe it. Debi Pearl has just got nutty ideas about everything, but ignoring scientific studies just blows my mind, or getting them wrong. And food is so important. It is how we heal ourselves. She's right about that. Having the right diet is very important. It was something that I really drove home when I started having children. Before that, I wasn't so much on it. My mother, don't forget the religious food rules of above rubies. Cindy, you're going to have to poke my brain because I don't remember them. It's been so long since I looked. Oh, the carrots. Oh, yes. She is hardly the only one. I knew some at my old church that drank nothing but carrot juice. It was all they consumed. They ate no food. They drank carrot juice all the time because they had cancer and they were trying to cure the cancer. They turned orange and yellow. And somebody else I know started using colloidal silver and turned gray. When you use supplements to that point, or a food to that point, even a good food, even something that's good for you, carrots are relatively healthy. And when you use it to that quantity, different color, you may want to back off and have a piece of grilled chicken and broccoli instead of that. And so the comment that I got that was just making me think was talking about how Americans have this huge pageant of food and stuff. No, a lot of us, myself included, are trying to eat healthy. So we're having steamed broccoli and cauliflower and carrots. We're having grilled chicken, grilled steak, various things. The picture that I have in the very flour and carrots. We're having grilled chicken, grilled steak, various things. The picture that I have in the very front of this live stream is a dinner I made for us. It's big finger, just salad, a cooked steak, and a very tiny baked potato stuffed with cheese, a little bit of cheese and green onions. Because I care about what we eat, because what we eat determines so much. And it's something that I've been struggling with recently. So to read this about from Jill and to know that these kids were being raised like so many other Quiverfull children that I knew weren't getting fed. Last time I talked about, we had a family that their children would inhale the after church refreshments, just go to the table and just do like this. And I found out they weren't feeding the kids breakfast or lunch. That was their breakfast lunch. And that's why they were standing there and inhaling $20, $30 worth of crap every single Sunday. So it wasn't the healthiest stuff. And if you tried to get the child to have fruit, a vegetable, cheese, something like that, it was like, nope, I don't like that stuff. I don't eat vegetables. I'm allergic to vegetables. Now, I do understand food allergies, but not everybody is going to be allergic to carrot sticks. I'm sorry. So I always kind of got a laugh out of those kids and so many others. because I knew after I figured out that they weren't getting fed properly at home, for me, I started varying what we were bringing, and I started getting other people to do that and say, hey, we probably need to provide X amount of dollars every week because there are kids that aren't getting fed, and this is where they're getting fed. Now, this is where I think Quiverfull fails so horribly, because if they were in public school, they would be eligible for free lunch and free breakfast. And if they were eligible for free lunch and free breakfast, then yeah, they were probably eligible for WIC and for the SNAP program as well. And like I said, when I worked at the residential treatment center, when we got kids in that had been seized from their parents because something was screwed up, 99% of the time they wanted to live on processed foods. We say, no, I'm sorry, that doesn't exist here. So you can have all the unlimited salad you want to go with your meal, but your meal was determined by a dietitian. So we have these fruits, we have these vegetables, we have this protein, we have the starch. This is the way we do it here. And each cottage had a huge bowl of bananas, apples, oranges, and you were allowed unlimited fruit too. So that was always really hard. You're in the kitchen reheating leftovers. I'm not eating, Cindy. My eating is so screwed up. So that's what's funny that I'm ranting about this. I started exercising really hard about a week and a half ago. And for me, one of the things that happens is when I start working out hard, my appetite increases to insane levels. Yesterday, I swam for an hour and I must have eaten 6 meals yesterday. I'm not kidding. Today, I've eaten one, but I've done nothing today. I drove my husband to get his big toe looked at the doctor's office, but I didn't do anything. I sat there and read a book while I was waiting. I thought about food insecurity. I thought about somebody thinking that what the Duggars had going on was not food insecurity and they're thinking it was okay to live on beans. I did foster care for 10 years. Some of the kids we had never had fresh veggies from a garden or home cooked meals. Exactly, Michelle. We had that same problem at the residential treatment center. It was amazing to me how many kids had not ever had fresh vegetables or fruit or any of that. And what we finally figured out worked to get them to try this was those of us that worked there. And I was not in direct care. I was in doing document auditing, okay, therapy note auditing. And what they finally decreed and was that all of us that worked there had to eat lunch at cafeteria with the children and sit with the kids. And that made a huge difference. When kids saw you eating that way, saw that you were going to eat that grilled chicken and that thing of salad, and you were going to have that little boiled potato and a whole pile of broccoli, and you were happy with that, guess what? It made a huge difference. And that is the thing that bothers me also about the whole thing with Quiverfull movement, not providing nutritious meals. Children model what they see. And if they see you living on white bread, shoving in donuts, or are not eating anything, guess what? That is what they're going to pick up. They're not going to pick up eating broccoli and whatever. They have to see that happening. They have to see that model before they pick that up. And if you don't make a big deal over it, oh, you're traveling. Hey, flying mom, Laura. I hope you're doing well. So this whole thing about beans are nutritious and they have their place. You know, I shared again that when my kids were in college, it was a really hard financial time for us because we were paying for their college. We had money put aside for the tuition, but we were paying for everything else. And it was just horribly expensive. And we went back to a very budgeted way of living, including what we ate. And I didn't do struggle food, but I started doing the buying co-ops. I started buying the seconds and the markdowns and looking at what was only on sale, figuring out recipes that were nutritious and delicious that I could make in the crock pot while I was at my job. Things like that is a way to get by. And beans have their place. I remember I came up with a bean recipe that my adult kids liked. There was all kinds of vegetables, including greens mixed in with the beans that were cooked in the crock pot with either ham or chicken, I forgot which, and so many spices. And we had that once a week or so because it was an inexpensive meal. So I guess what I'm saying is it's possible to feed, it's possible to have nutritious meals on less money. And I think more and more of us are going to have to turn back to that. From what I'm seeing of food prices in the USA, it looks like inflation is out of control there. For me here, as long as I am going to the butcher and buying my fresh meat, the Nicaraguan beef is hormone free and not grain fed, but grass fed. As long as I'm buying local chicken, as long as I'm buying local eggs and fruits and vegetables, it's no more expensive than it has been before. It's actually very cheap compared to the States. But the minute I try to buy anything imported from the States, the prices go through the roof. My husband loves that awful corned beef hash from the States. I don't particularly care for it myself. He loves it. It's $8 a can here. $8 a can. And cherries from Washington State, when they're in season, run $28 a pound here. So I tend to stay away from the American things. Processed foods are crazy expensive. We stay away from all of that stuff here, or at least we try to. Occasionally, like the other day, not the other day, a couple of weeks ago, we bought a giant thing of Chips Ahoy. And the next thing I know, I'm having Chips Ahoy with every meal. And I felt I had to say, look, I can't do this. You can't keep that stuff around me. I'm like an addict in Amsterdam with sweets. So for me, I can't do that. I have to have healthy options. And that's my rant. Know your nutrition, know what works for you, know what works for your budget. Look for the bargains if you have to, but they're still possible to feed your kids. Still make them live on white bread and mashed up beans. I mean, that might be okay every now and then, but I sure would not want to give anyone a steady diet of that. As parents, our main job is to ensure our kids have the best start in life that they can possibly have. And one of those ways is by feeding healthy foods, modeling healthy eating, making no big deal out of it, just making that this is a fact. We're having broccoli with this meal. You don't have to eat it all, but you have to at least taste it. Just be very laid back about it and just go from there. And don't do like the Duggars and the Rodriguezes and countless others and don't feed your children. Make it a priority. Just like going to the doctor should be a priority when you have things wrong with yourself instead of trying to rub on black salve. Oh my goodness, that was loud and near. Well, I better get off because football is happening soon. And my husband, I know, is going to be in here screaming at the television any minute now. I can't handle that. I got to go in the other room. Love you guys. I'll see you later. I don't know what I'm going to do about Jill's book, if I'm going to keep reviewing it. Somebody told me today that they consider the way I was doing my review to be stealing money from Jill's pocket. And that is not my intention. I wanted everybody to think about the things that Jill is talking about. I am at the point now where she has given birth to her first child and they've had nothing but problems. And it's a really hard read for that because it's intense. You got, she had all kinds of problems. And I think that goes back to the food. If you're not given proper food when you're growing up, your body won't be strong when you need it to be strong. You'll have all kinds of things wrong with you. And I think looking at some of the birth issues might have played a part in some of the birth problems they've had. Oh, you want me to keep reviewing the book? Okay, I'll keep doing it. I kind of want to because, like I said, I had to take Debi Pearl's book apart because there were so many just outrageous lies. They're not outrageous lies in Jill's, but what there are is she's exposing things that are just unbelievably bad that the entire family is just trying to keep swept under the rug. And, it says the truth will set you free. Well, it's setting Jill free. And I can't tell you how thrilled I am that Jill has gotten away. I never thought that I would say this, but Derek is the hero she needed because Derek is the one that came in and said, hey, wait a minute, this isn't nice or normal. This isn't right. And I don't know that Jill has described herself as a people pleaser. I don't know if she would have had the strength to make the breakaway without having someone strong and courageous. Derek. Oh my gosh, I just complimented Derek after a long time of thinking that Derek was kind of a loser. Maybe wait until the book that Derek was kind of a loser. Maybe wait until the book has been out for 6 months. Well, Cindy, I'm kind of inhaling it now, and I'm kind of going back over it a few times. I read Jill's book, but it's still fun reviewing it together. I'm glad to hear that, Lightybug. And I think anybody that's curious about the book will have either already read it completely by now or they are in the process of reading it. And that people looking at the book and doing a review are not going to dissuade anybody who wants to buy the book. I'm trying to process it in generalities, Cindy, and this is what we got. This is what we got. I was just so astounded when I read the comments about how eating beans was fine, and I ought to know better since I live in Costa Rica. Let me tell you, gallo pinto, black beans and rice is a huge thing here, and it's okay. It's not my favorite because it's not very spicy, and if I'm gonna have beans, they gotta have some spice in them. That's just the Cajun in me, but um, they're good if you pair them with salad, with plantains, with grilled chicken or grilled pork chop. They're not good when it's just that's what all you got. It's not very healthy for anybody, not even a Tico. Not even a Tico, even though it is the underpinning of their entire diet is gallo pinto. And I gotta say, I love breakfast tamales. I love the Christmas tamales they make. I could gorge on those every day, all day long. But alas, only Christmas time. And you're right, you can't make everybody happy. Um, yeah, I know that, Cindy. I was just astounded because of the tone of the comment was just like, what? Normally I would just move something like that to Jerks for Jesus and not even reply to. But I did reply and try to point out that gallo pinto is a struggle food here. I know it. That and iguana soup. Iguana soup. Do what we tell post Quiverfull. Do your own thing. You're exactly right. Do your own thing. Hey, Moonchild Pink. So I hate to tell you, Moonchild Pink, I'm going. I've been online 32 minutes now. I got to vacate for football. Fantasy football nut is get ready to come in here and just take over everything. So I have to go. Love you guys.